All right, guys, it's time for the Tampa Bay Lightning preseason review. Now, after a season where I think pretty much everyone had them pegged to beat Florida in the first round, they were ultimately bounced in the first round in pretty easy fashion, which had a lot of people shocked, which I was a bit baffled by considering Florida were the reigning Stanley Cup champions and ultimately went on to win back to back. It's almost like that was a game or that was a series that probably should have been saved for later on, given two powerhouse teams. But that's that's for another conversation. The playoff bracket. We're here to talk about the new season coming up, and I mean, I think it's still very positive for Tampa Bay, even after all of this playoff run and success with the Cups. And yeah, like let's have a look at that lineup. Not too many changes from what we've seen, but
Yeah.
let's have a look at it.
Yeah, not so many outs. So 1.8 mil cap space, 22 out of 23 in the roster. Going down, you got your forwards, Kucherov, Point, Gensel, Hagel, Sorelli, Bjorkstrand, Paul, Gourd, Holmberg, Goncalves, or Gonclaves. I don't know how you want to say it. I always want to say Gonclaves. Um, Geeky, Allard, Gergensons, and Chaffee. Hedman, McDonough, Chernak, Moser, Radish, and Lilleberg. And then going on to goaltenders, basically just Vasilevsky. But there is Johansson there as well. Just a little bit of slight dishing there. But yeah, pretty much no outs. Yeah, no outs, like no real big trades. Only bringing in Holmberg, who's not even in the projected lineup in regards to depth and whatnot. Obviously he will play games, but um, yeah, they're pretty much just running it back, and why not? Pretty much a lot of their players signed to term. They've had this core for a while now, at least in the Kucherov points and Hedman and Vasilevsky's. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, it's an interesting team. I like the top nine. I got issues with probably like the bottom four in regards to the forwards. Defense probably the bottom pairing or so worries me a little, and obviously the backup goaltending worries me. But that's what happens when you've been successful so long. And yeah, let me know, Nicaroni, if you think they're actually going to do anything in the playoffs this year, if they're actually going to run it back, or do they even make the playoffs?
Uh, Look, I think everyone's been expecting Tampa to sort of drop off and miss the playoffs for I don't know the last handful of years. I think everyone saw, yeah, especially after the cup runs, they obviously had the flop where they got bounced by Columbus unexpectedly in the first round, then went on to win the two cups, lose to Colorado in the Stanley Cup. But after every single season, they were losing player after player after player, and a lot of people were like, oh, they're not going to be able to sustain, the playoffs. They're going to fall off. The East is going to overtake them, but they just haven't. And they've managed to, they pick up Hagel, they pick up Gensel along the way, which adds that scoring from the players that they've lost. Bring players like Ryan McDonough back and all the rest of it, whilst also maintaining, their core players like Kucherov,
Yeah,
Point,
they've never
um,
lost
Vasilevsky.
their core players. They've
No,
always had
outside of
they've always had their
Stamkos,
core four. They're Toronto's core four. Um,
yeah. But yeah, like so it's hard to sort of say, yeah, they're done. They're not making the playoffs this year. They're over because I still think this team is strong enough. Yeah, I still think this team is a playoff team. Um, as long as Vasilevsky plays to his ability, like he's literally at worst top three best goaltenders in the league. Like I think there's a lot of reason to say he's number one. But I think at worst you're arguing that he'd come in third best in the league. I don't think he's any less than that. And then they've obviously got aging, yes, but still very solid defensemen in Hedman, McDonough, and that. So yeah, this team still has the makings of a playoff team. the question mark is can they get past that next step, which is what they've struggled at. And I feel like it comes from the fact that, yes, they've got that core. Yes, they've got some really good players in the, top pair defenseman, great goaltender, top six forwards. But I do feel like it's that depth that lets them down. And I feel like that depth is what gets you past and gets you the cup.
Yeah. Yeah, my issue with the team, they've obviously got their core. They're good at goal scoring. They've brought in goal scorers. My big issue with it is a little bit lackluster in regards to the depth. Some of that depth isn't really built for playoffs either, which is a bit of a problem, I think. And that's why I don't feel like even when they make the playoffs, they won't, go super deep or win the cup. Even
Yeah.
as good as Vasilevsky is, Hedman, and these players are getting slowly older. As you said, 34 in Hedman, McDonough 36. Kucherov's getting up there as well. It's starting to the point where some players will start to decline. Doesn't mean they will, but there will be some speed isn't the thing. Maybe more injuries, and yeah, the issue with this team is the depth,
Mhm.
and the type of depth. I don't think they have the cup final depth that they need, and
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know how they fix that, because they're at the cap. They've been constantly rotating players in and out every season in a sense
Yeah.
because it is how it is when you're always at the cap. But ultimately, it's a good team. They've still got a lot of their draft picks. Obviously, they've traded their two firsts away, so there's no real big moves on that department that they can move to bring in another big name player. Like the biggest name player they brought in was Gensel a while ago, and
Mhm.
yeah, he was a 40 goal scorer. He'll score your goals, so that's great. But I think ultimately it's going to be depth, uh, depth D, backup goaltending. If you're in the Stanley Cup Final, Game 7, I'm just running through Vasilevsky. Bring in the backup and win a cup. And I tripped and fell, but it does come to a point where relying on one goaltender can be a lot. But we've seen Bobrovsky do it. We've seen Vasilevsky do it. They do it because they are the best, but I don't see them winning, which is unfortunate. And I don't see them not making the playoffs either, just because that core is still there, and they've added, I guess you could say, Gensel to make it a core five at this point. Maybe in Hagel for a core six.
Yeah, it's hard to see them. It's hard to see them getting. It's hard to see them having such a bad season that they can't make the playoffs. I think the East is going to be very congested, um, especially for the wild card spots. But I don't think that Tampa Bay are going to be a part of that. I do believe that Tampa Bay will probably be a pretty secure team in that top three. With, again, like I
Yeah,
said, I
I
think.
think regular
Um,
season bodes well for teams that score,
mhm,
and this team scores. That's why Toronto has made it in the playoffs consistently with their core forwards because they score.
mhm,
Um, and I think that is the key, and that's why I don't see them missing the playoffs. But then
yeah,
doing anything in the playoffs is completely different.
yeah.
But yeah, I can't see them not making it this year still, even with how good
No,
the that division has gotten.
exactly. It would be absolutely wild to see this team completely capitulate. I think what you would need to see is Vasilevsky goes down for most of the season. They lose one of their, top six, or one or two of their top six, in like a Kucherov, a Braden Point, Gensel, for a long period of time. I think they'd have to have some serious injury plagues really go through the lineup for them to not make it. It's just, again, yeah, like you said, what can they do once they get to the playoffs? Because you said it yourself, like they've got scorers, they've got a really great top six. That third line's not too bad either. They've got Hedman, McDonough, Chernak's fantastic, Vasilevsky in net. Like they've got the pieces, but I just feel like it's that depth that lets them down. And Yeah, it's also one of the shit parts about being paired with Florida in their division. If you don't finish top, there's a good chance you're coming up against them in the first round, and they're not an easy team to come up against. Like, you're not expecting in the first round when you've just finished second in your division and one of the better teams in the East to come up against the reigning Stanley Cup champions. So
Nah,
I
you
do feel
you only have
like,
first some later where hopefully they have a little bit more injuries or something.
mm,
In that
I do
case,
yeah, I do feel like a lot of luck comes down to making your way through the playoffs as
yeah,
well. Sometimes, like, you sometimes need to get paired against one of those. I don't think any team's really a weak team that makes the playoffs. You make playoffs for a reason, but there's a big difference in playing, say, in Ottawa that made the playoffs for the first time in a long time, very inexperienced, than playing against Florida.
yeah.
Like,
There's a difference between like cup contenders and round one exiters. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. So I can see these guys doing something in playoffs and I can see them winning a series, but I'm not quite sure they've got another cup in them. Unfortunately. In saying that, Vasilevsky stands on his head, this team could do anything.
yeah. Now I just think I'd need to see different additions to the depth in regards to mainly just on the forward line. Maybe just work around some of the wingers in regards to depth. Bringing in players like the Corey Perrys or whatever, those old veterans that are a bit hard bodied that play a role, and you know what you're going to get. Those are kind of the players that I would like to see this team adding, and I
Hmm.
feel like that would round out because they've got the skill, they got the goal scoring, um, they got the speed, uh, they got the system, and they got the goaltending. The defense is there because they got some big names on that decor. So ultimately, it's just how do they move around that depth? Is it going to be good enough, or do you just run your top lines for extra-handed minutes? Kind of like what Oilers do with McDavid and Draisaitl, where they play extra shifts all the time. Do you just overshift Point and Kucherov and whatnot to get those to lessen the load on your depth? Which might be key
But
for them, but then obviously I don't think they've got the bodies to handle that in playoffs.
yeah, you start to overload your players by doing that. Like I
Yeah,
know Oilers just made back-to-back Stanley Cups, but playing your star players 25 minutes a night isn't a sustainable thing to do. And it's you see it all the time with teams where they play their absolute stars for ridiculous amounts of time, and it's probably okay to do when they're you know uh, mid mid to late 20s, but you start getting in your 30s and those big minutes start to play um big parts on your body and sort of yeah, I just don't think that's what you want to. That's not a recipe for success. You look at Florida, how they've built their success. You look at this Tampa Bay when they won the cups. They had depth. They had lines that they could roll out at all times, and be confident in the amount of minutes they eat.
yeah.
Um, I
Yeah,
think I think
ultimately, that's just what it comes down to, right? Like
hmm,
some teams have that look like old Tampa, where
yeah,
this team doesn't look like old Tampa, and
no.
that's why I don't see them winning the cup. Yeah,
And I think years, but going back, probably 10-ish years ago, um, some of the defenders playing big minutes and having like a third pair defense that plays like 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes. That was a common thing, and they did have a lot of that. But I think in this day and age, with how fast the game has gotten, especially in the last 10 years, it's not as easy to do that anymore. I feel like you need contributions from all across
yeah.
the lineup.
Well, it's just sport in general has evolved to the point where you have to be an athlete. You can't just be
Mm,
a hockey player. You have to be an athlete. I think
mm.
probably the last hockey player was geez, Hot Dog Man. I'm forgetting his name right off the top of my head. Played for Penguins.
Oh, Kessel, Phil
Kessel.
Kessel.
Like he was in my opinion like the last bloody hockey player in regards to like just one of those players just like they're good at the game. They don't need to be an athlete.
They have
Um,
no physical, like,
yeah.
like,
So
I'm sure he's a built like a
no,
tank, but,
we
like
we we are old enough in pretty much every sport. We seen those players where they weren't athletes, but they were the best at what they did. Now it's just be an athlete and then get good at the game. And that's what I think is a bit of a difference there in regards to like 10 years ago and why some people could play 20, 25 minutes. It's because the game was slower. You just had to play a certain way and you got through it. Whereas these days it's way too much faster. The kids are skating way like McDavid's one of the fastest in the world. Like you got to keep up with McDavid's, McCarrs, and all those. Like
if
you're
if
not
you get
gonna.
caught out in the ice, yeah, if you get
Yeah,
caught out in the ice for, spending your shifts too long, McDavid jumps on the ice and just walks around you like
yeah.
it's nothing. Like, and
Regular seasons churn from strength to speed. The
mm,
problem is the playoffs are strength, no speed.
mm,
I wouldn't say no
yeah,
speed, but basically no speed.
mm,
It's dump and hit.
yeah,
That's playoff
yeah,
dump and hit.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I just don't think this team has dump and hit in it. Unfortunately, it kind of reminds me of the Oilers in a
mm,
sense. But ultimately, yeah, I don't have too much more to add. It's really just a team running it back. Uh, Same names we're used to. They're always in the hunt. Obviously, coming up against Florida in their division. See if they can be one of the people to stop the trifecta. But ultimately, I think good things. Obviously, no real changes. Only at Holmberg added, which is depth. I think if you're a Tampa fan, you're still loving it. Like you've been in the hunt for how long now? 7 years, eight
yeah,
years? I can't. I don't even know
yeah.
now. It's
Consistently making playoffs. You've won the two cups. You've been in three Stanley Cup finals. I think, you know,
yeah, it's like
as much as you
spread
would
spread
love
the
to
love,
see
guys.
another one.
Spread the love.
Yeah, as much as anyone would love to just keep winning the cup, I think just getting to watch this team for what it is, they're gonna be a winning team. They're gonna make the playoffs. You're gonna be in the playoffs yet again, most likely. So I think you just enjoy it and you just hope that essentially they might be able to pinch a series or two, and who knows, they might even go as far as making another Stanley Cup final. But I definitely see a lot of other teams ahead of these guys at the moment.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, let us know in the comments what you think. Oh, the Tampa, can they run it back? Can they win the cup? And or do they be the stopper of Florida and then still don't win the cup? It ruins everyone's dreams, but then they don't even do it either. Um,
Yeah,
that'll be interesting. But yeah, let us know what you think of the Tampa Bay Lightning in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and check out our other content. But till next time, we'll catch you guys.